Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and even though it seems like we just covered SSD support on bad update on the Xbox 360, or really just SSDs for all 360s in general, we are back over here at the Xbox 360. You can see right here, this is actually my bad update enabled system, and we're going to be doing another drive upgrade because things have gotten a little more exciting in the world of bad update. You see, Eaton has come through yet again with a new release called Bad Storage, which it states is a project for unlocking up to 2 terabytes of internal storage for those using the Xbox 360 bad update exploit. Now previously, one of the major limitations here with a retail system and even a bad update enabled system was that the internal storage had to be up to 500 gigabytes. You could not utilize more than that. So now that we're talking about 2 terabytes, what's the deal here? Well, Eaton talks about it and states here, when the Xbox 360 kernel initializes the disk at boot time, the security sector is verified, and if the disk size is larger than the size indicated in the security sector, the disk size will be truncated to match it. This is why drives larger than 500 gigabytes cannot be used in their full capacity. However, Beta 36 of FATXplorer introduces a tweak to the hard drive formatting process. The root cluster is set to 0, which is invalid, and this results in the kernel loading the partition, but all attempts to do anything with it will fail because the kernel now sees the root directory as corrupt. With that in place, what bad storage does is it first unmounts the partition, it then modifies the kernel partition objects to utilize the full disk capacity, it patches the kernel to always use the correct root cluster value, and finally it remounts the partition, which results in your drive's full capacity being unlocked while also supporting avatars and original Xbox backwards compatibility. So that's all to say here that yes, if you are using bad storage, you can now use SSDs up to 2 terabytes in size. There's going to be a few caveats and limitations here, and I'll go ahead and actually just get into that now. Now, one of the main limitations here is that this is essentially a bad update exclusive, and before you get confused, let me explain. First of all, if you have a hard-modded system, meaning a JTAG or an RGH system, you do not need this at all. You actually already have it. I have a video showing how you can swap out to a bigger drive if you have a hard-modded system, and that is usually as simple as taking your new drive, popping it into your system, and then formatting it, and that's about it. You really don't have to do much else there. So you already have that functionality in place. So if we're not talking about hard-modded systems, why is this exclusive to bad update? Well, it's because you will not be able to use this in a standard retail mode. And by that I mean, let's say you come out here and you can still use the dashboard, but let's just say you want to boot up your system here and you don't want to run bad update. For whatever reason, you just want to play in a completely stock environment. You don't want to run homebrew. You don't want to have extra patches. You don't want any of that extra stuff running here. That will be the main limitation here. Once you have your drive set up for bad storage, you cannot use that drive in any meaningful way over on the retail side of house. So that's all to say, if you want to set up a new SSD and make sure it works in retail mode on your system, meaning just a completely stock, unmodified experience, for whatever reason, if that's what you're looking for, I do have a video specifically covering that. It will be linked down below in the description of this video, and that one will have a limitation of up to 500 gigabytes. So just keep that in mind. However, if you're in the camp where you do not have a hard-modded system and you do not care about the retail side, you just want your system to run on bad update here, you're going to be fine. Just keep in mind that you will have to run bad update in order to use that internal drive. I will have Eaton's page for bad update linked down below in the description so you can see more of the finer details here, but to summarize this real quick, you will need to reflash a drive, meaning it's going to be the best and easiest option to go ahead and get a compatible SSD and reflash it using FATXplorer. You can technically use a hard drive for this, but you're going to have to find a Western Digital drive that was manufactured prior to 2020. So in terms of both ease of use and ease of access, just getting a new SSD is going to be a much better option. Since we're boosting the limit to 2 terabytes, for anybody who might be wondering what about larger ones such as using the XL patches from hard-modded systems to get up to 16 terabytes, yes, that is possible on a hard-modded system. He even states here there are complications with porting the XL patches to bad update. You will lose backwards compatibility and avatars, for example. Enjoy 2 terabyte without compromises for now. Maybe something will come of this in the future. Oh, and as a warning to your future self here, do not ever format your bad storage drive once you set it up within the console itself. You should only do that through FATXplorer, but don't format it within the console. Now for the prerequisites to do this here, if you want to get all set up, you're going to need an Xbox 360 already set up with a bad update. I have a full video showing how to do this here, so that is going to be a prerequisite. However, it doesn't really matter what your entry point is. You can use Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, Rock Band Blitz, or even Bad Avatar, just as long as you can get Bad Update running and working like you're seeing right here. You'll also need to get yourself a compatible SSD, and I'm going to have the SSD support information guide linked in the description as well too. Now do keep in mind this does require FATXplorer as well as the SSD Maker on there, which is a paid software. Now I'm not affiliated, I'm not sponsored with FATXplorer or Eaton here. I just like the software and I've gotten use out of it, a ton of use out of it for years here. But keep in mind that in order to do this, you'll either have to purchase a full FATXplorer license for $25 US, or you can purchase a SSD Maker license for $3. It's going to be up to you. But with that license in place, you are going to need a compatible SSD. And there's going to be several SSDs that Eaton's going to be discussing here. Most of these are going to be covering the ones that are 500 gigabytes or lower in size, since that was for the original SSD Maker. But I'm sure we're going to see more updates here for the newer capacity drives. I'll show you all, this is the drive I actually used. It's a Lexar NS100 SSD. It is 2 terabytes, and this one does work with bad storage. So I will at least have the Lexar drive that I use linked down below in the description if you're wanting to use that same drive. You will also need a way to hook up your SSD to your computer here in order to reflash it, and if you want an easy way of doing this here, you could use a SATA to USB adapter. This is the one that I'm using, for example. It's a StarTech one and it has worked really well. Lastly, depending on the type of system, you might or might not need a hard drive enclosure. Now if you're going to be performing this on a Phat system, you are going to need a hard drive enclosure of some kind in order to get it working on that system. Now if you're using a slim model such as the S or E, it would be recommended at least to get an enclosure of some kind, and I would not recommend opening up an old enclosure with an existing drive. Those drive enclosures, they're designed to be closed up but not designed to be reopened. However, there's a few options for this here. If you want to get an enclosure, thankfully they're pretty affordable, and even others have mentioned the last time I talked about this that you can actually just 3D print these as well too, so it's going to be up to you. Now with all the limitations, compatibility information, and prerequisites out of the way, let's get to these downloads, and for that you are going to need to move over to your PC. So go ahead, take your bad update USB drive and take it on over. Since I'm going to do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the system here, remove my USB drive, and take it over to the PC. Now the first download we're going to need is going to be the FATXplorer beta. You can go either to the download section or the 3.0 beta section and click. If you're over here, for example, what you can do is give this a read, but scroll down to the bottom, and there's going to be 2 downloads that you'll need here. First of all, you're going to need the latest .NET 9 desktop runtime, and you're also going to need FATXplorer. Now, if you're confused about which bit architecture to use here, let's make this a little bit simple. If you're using Windows 11, you're going to download these 64-bit versions. And if you're using any prior version of Windows, download these 64-bit versions and give those a try. If they do not work, download the 32-bit versions. But you're going to need to download both the .NET Desktop Runtime as well as the FATXplorer Beta. This here, as well as the rest of the downloads, will be linked down below in the description. But if you want to set up your original Xbox emulator, you can also do that here as well once we set up the drive. Now there's going to be 2 downloads that you could get, and you just need one of them. You could either get the original files or you can get the modified ones right here. My recommendation, since you can only use this with bad update, meaning you have to get into a modified state to use this drive, I'd recommend just downloading the hacked version right here, but it's going to be up to you. You will also need the latest build of Xe Unshackle or Xenon Unshackle here. Yes, you might already have this set up, but recently there's actually been an update to it which does support bad storage. In order to download it, if you haven't downloaded it already, you can scroll up to the top here, go over to the releases section, and you're going to just download the latest one. You can see right here in the official release of 1.03, they added support for bad storage. Depending on when you watch this, there might be a newer build of it, but either way, just go ahead and download the latest zip file you can find. Now, as a heads up, when you download this, if your antivirus ends up flagging it, it's because of the bad storage file which is in there. So if that's causing an issue, you're just going to have to go into your antivirus and allow that file to stay on your computer. And the final download here is actually going to be, well, the 17559 dashboard download. I'm going to recommend downloading this and putting it on your USB drive because once we set up this drive here, we have to put the avatar data back on. And that's going to be important, especially if you're using bad avatar as an entry point. So I'll go ahead and have this linked as well, but you can just download it and save it somewhere you can easily find it. Now here we go. These should be all of your downloads available. And let's go ahead and knock the easy one out of the way here. We're just going to copy and paste some files to our USB drive. So the two files you're going to need for that are going to be exe unshackle as well as the latest system update available here. Just go ahead and take both of these zip files and you can right click them, use something such as 7-zip to extract them out right here. This should produce two folders. One of them is going to be the exe unshackle folder and the other one is going to be the cache system update folder. If you haven't already done so, grab your USB drive, plug it in, and this is going to be your USB drive which has bad update already set up. Now let's go ahead and get this updated here. The first thing we're going to need is the cache system update folder. Just go ahead, copy that out, and paste it to the root of the USB drive. Give it a few moments to copy over. Now once it's copied over, it should look exactly like this. The next thing is going to be exe unshackle. Go ahead, open up the exe unshackle folder, and within this there's going to be a bad update payload folder. Navigate in here, and there's going to be two files. This is the one, the DLL. This will be the file that your antivirus might get upset about. So like I said, if it's flagging this here, just go into your antivirus and allow that file to stay on your drive. Once you have it sorted though, take the bad storage XEX DLL and the default XEX files, highlight both of them, right click, copy them out. Now go to your USB drive, go into the bad update payload directory, and then right click and paste. If it gives you a prompt asking you to overwrite a file or saying something already exists, go ahead, overwrite all. That's just going to update the default XEX, so you now have the latest Xenon Unshackle. And with that done, we're good at that point. So you can now come out here, right click, eject your USB drive, and we no longer need the USB drive. You can also go ahead and delete the Xenon Unshackle as well as the system update files and folders because we're not going to need those. Now we get to work with FATXplorer to actually set up bad storage. So for this here, the first thing you should do is run the desktop runtime. Bring this up and go ahead, click the install button if you don't already have this installed. Give it a few moments, let it install. It'll look like that, and then once it's done, there we go. We can now click on close, and once that's closed, we can delete this executable since we're not going to need that. The next thing we'll need is FATXplorer itself. Go ahead, grab the zip file, right click it, and you can extract it out here. This is going to give you a FATXplorer folder. You can open this up, scroll down, and look for the FATXplorer executable. Double click it to run it. When you launch it, it's going to look something like this. Now, I already have this driver installed, but if you've never used this before, go ahead and install or update your driver if you need to, and then reboot your computer, and once it's back online, you can go ahead, run FATXplorer again. Now we can get ready to actually prepare our SSD. So there's going to be a couple things you'll need. The first thing you'll need to do is take your SSD and hook it up to your computer. You can see right here, I have mine hooked up to my SATA adapter, and I plug that into my computer. The second thing is going to be, of course, the SSD Maker license. Now, like I said, you're either going to need the license for SSD Maker or a license for FATXplorer overall, but you'll need one of those two in order to make this work. Once you have it set up here, what you can do is navigate over to the Xbox 360 SSD Maker and open it up. Allow it some time to search for devices, and then once it does that, we can click on the drop-down button here and look for your drive. You can see right here, mine is showing up as this Lexar SSD. Go ahead and click on it and wait for it to load in. Now, if it works properly the first time, awesome. But if not, it might give you an error such as this. So there might be a little bit of troubleshooting you have to do. It does tell us that we're going to have to manually specify a device type. So I'll show you how to do this. If you run into an issue such as this, just click on OK. Options is going to come up, and what you'll need to do is navigate to device type and change this to SAT. Once that's been set, we can close out of here, click on refresh, wait for it to search, and then bring up our drive yet again. You can see this time around it ended up working for me because it populated all of our information, but if it doesn't here, what you could also do is click on options, and you might have to still set this to SAT, check your controller options, and just navigate through each one. So for example, if that did not work, you could see I have a Maxio controller. You might have to go to the controller option, pick which type of controller you have, since mine is Maxio, and then click on refresh. Once it refreshes, you can check your drive yet again. And I know this one, yep, is still going to be recognized. The last thing you could try is if there's an issue with your adapter, you can go to options and make sure SAT is enabled. If you know what type of controller your drive has, you're going to want to pick one of the options here. And finally, if it's an adapter compatibility issue, you might need to enable use 12-byte commands. You can just click that, make sure it is checked, and then just like before, you can go ahead, refresh this, and then bring up your drive yet again. As you can see, it brings it up each time now, so I know my drive is recognized, working, and compatible. Now we get to go through the process of reflashing our drive. In order to do this here, yet again, make sure you have picked the proper drive, so that way we don't mess with any of our other drives on our computer. I know this is my SSD for sure. Once it's been selected, click on Backup and Flash. It is going to give us this message asking us to save our undo.bin file, which is what we want. Go ahead and click on OK. Now what this will do is generate an undo file for us, and this essentially undoes the changes that we're going to be making here. So if you ever want to revert your drive back to what it was, you can always reflash this file. And I'll actually show you all how to do that here momentarily. But take this undo file, make sure it's somewhere safe, and click on Save. It's now going to flash the firmware here, and once it's done, you're now going to get this message saying flash successful. But do keep this in mind here, it actually states for my specific drive, for Maxio drives, you should reconnect the device before formatting so you get an accurate experience. So with that, I'm actually going to close out of here, and I'm going to physically disconnect the drive from my computer and then reconnect it. Now that I've done that, I'm going to go over to Devices, click on Refresh, and wait a few moments for this. And here we go, we do have a drive set up here. You can see it's showing as a Hitachi drive. It is healthy, but it's also showing up as 2 terabytes. So there's a bit going on there. Once you have this set up, click on Formatting Tools. And within the formatting wizard here, we're going to click on Xbox 360 HDD. Once it searches for devices here, go ahead and let it search. And once it finds us here, scroll down and find your drive. I know mine is this one right here because it is the Hitachi drive, and this is the 2 terabyte one I just worked on. So go ahead and click on your drive, click on Next. If it brings up any messages about a security sector, we don't need to worry about this here because we've already reflashed our drive properly. So just go ahead and check this, which says, I understand that by not providing a valid matching security sector, my hard drive won't work on retail consoles. Check that and click on Next. Now it's going to bring up this message here, which will ask, are you planning on using this device with bad update and bad storage together? If you have no idea what this means, choose no. Since we are using bad storage, click on Yes. Now we get to configure our partitions. So for this here, go to the System Extended partition, and we're going to format that, hit Save. For System Auxiliary, we're going to do the exact same thing, format and save. For the backwards compatibility partition, that's already set up, and for the content partition, this is also set up. Now as a added little bonus, Eaton actually let me know of this here. If you go to the content partition, you can format it to 16 kilobyte clusters, but if you want to speed it up a little bit more, you can actually change this cluster size to 64 kilobyte clusters and save. Just keep in mind here that this is going to be adding 64 kilobytes to every single file that you have, as opposed to 16 kilobytes, which means you're going to be sacrificing some storage in order to get that speed boost here. But if you're okay with that, you can click on Save. Once you have all that set up, click on Next, and you can set up a name for your drive. I'm going to call mine personally Bad Storage SSD. You can call it whatever you want to, but that's what I'm going to call mine. Hit Next. I'm not going to preload this, so I'm going to hit Next yet again, and then hit Format. Once it's been formatted, it says the device is now ready to use, so you can click on OK. Real quick, before we move forward, I do want to show you all how to use that undo file in case you ever want to revert your drive back to what it was. You can go to the Xbox 360 SSD Maker and do the exact same thing we just did before. I'm going to go to Options, SAT, I'm going to set mine as Maxio, refresh this, and I'm going to bring up the drive itself. So you can see here, once you select this, it will let you know the drive's firmware already matches the chosen security sector. You can click on OK, and if you ever want to undo this here, you can click on Options, and then click on Restore Undo.bin. Click on that, go ahead, find your undo.bin file, open it up, and it will then revert your drive back to its original factory state. So it will not be Xbox 360 compatible. That's just if you ever want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that, so I'm going to cancel out of here and close out of this, but that's how you can restore your drive if you ever want to in the future. Now that our SSD has been set up and formatted, let's go ahead and get the hacked backwards compatibility files over here. For this, within FATXplorer, click on Devices, click on your drive, click on Load Device. Once it loads in, click on backwards compatibility partition and mount it. It will open it up in a new drive like this, but you can even see if you go back, it's going to show up like any other drive in our computer. It's just going to be a small one because this partition is quite small. So what you can do is grab your hacked backwards compatibility files zip, right click it, and extract it into its own folder. Once you open this up here, there's going to be a 64 megabyte folder, a 128 megabyte folder, and a readme.txt. I'd recommend giving the readme.txt a good read here, just so you can understand a little bit of the basics of how this works and such, but in short, I can explain it to you all. Both of these show how much RAM is going to be available in the emulator itself. Now I'm going to tell you the most boring option tends to be the most stable, and that's going to be the 64 megabyte version and the regular version. If you're interested in the HUD version, this just allows you to use the guide in-game, and then HUD with plugins, it allows you to use the guide with plugins as well. But from my experience and seeing other people's experiences, these ones seem to be less stable the more stuff you add to them. So yet again, if you want the most stable experience, it's going to be 64 megabytes and regular. Now whichever variant you pick, go into the folder, find your compatibility folder, right-click, and copy it out. Now go to your bad storage SSD, right-click, and paste. And there we go, the compatibility folder is right there. With that done, we can close out of here, go to devices, click on our SSD, and click on unmount. Now this next step is going to be strictly optional, and it really depends on the viewer and what your setup is going to be. If you already have a setup on your existing drive that you want to migrate over to this SSD, you can follow along with this. If you don't care about that and you just want to start fresh, you can go ahead and skip this step and just pop your drive into your system. However, if you'd like to do a data migration and move all your data from your old drive to your new drive, I'll show you how to do that real quick. What you can do is take your old drive and physically hook it up to that adapter and then plug it into your computer. Since I'm using a slim system here, you could see I just had to take the drive and pop it in like this. Once it's plugged in, make sure you're in FATXplorer, go over to your devices and click on refresh if needed. Give it a few seconds here. Once it's been refreshed, you would see here, this is my old hard drive because you can also check by the size, it's about 250 gigabytes. So click on this drive, click on load device, and once it's loaded in, scroll down to the content partition and go ahead and mount it. Once it's mounted, it's going to pop up like this and you're going to see all of your files and folders which are on your existing hard drive. In order to copy this out, literally all you have to do is copy it out. Highlight everything, right click, and copy. Now I'm going to close out of here, minimize this, and I'm going to make a new folder on my desktop. You can make this wherever you want to. I'll go ahead, call this one here HDD Backup. And once we're in here, open that up. Now within your new folder, right click and paste. Now depending on a few factors, mainly being how old your drive is, how fast that drive is, your adapter, your own computer, just several different things, as well as the amount of data on here, this could take a few seconds, a few minutes, or even a few hours. You could see here I have about 30 gigabytes worth of storage on here, and this should be done within about 6 minutes. So just wait for your file transfer to finish up. Now you can see here this is almost done copying. We've caught it right at the end, and once everything copies over, there we go, it should be all done. So if I go into the hard drive backup folder, as you can see, this has all the contents from our hard drive. With that copied over, we can close out of here, open up FATXplorer, go to devices, click on your drive, click on unmount, and once it's unmounted, go ahead and disconnect this drive. Now once your SSD is plugged in, you can click on devices, click on refresh, and wait a few moments here. Once it's refreshed, click on your drive, click on load device, go to the content partition and mount it. Now it automatically opens, but if I go back up one, you can see that this is my 2 terabyte SSD. So in order to transfer everything over, it's pretty simple. Go to your hard drive backup folder, highlight everything except for the name.txt file. If you have a name.txt file, you do not need to bring it over. But highlight everything, right click, copy, close out of here, go over to your bad storage SSD, right click and paste. Now the nice benefit is going to be, I'll actually close out of here, it's going to transfer everything over a lot faster because not only this is a much newer drive, but this is also a SSD. So you can see here, my last one took about 6 or 7 minutes. This one's going to take 1 or 2 minutes, so much faster. Okay, this is worth showing you all. We're getting about 330 megabytes here, and previously on the other drive, I was getting at most maybe 74 megabytes a second, so that's a pretty nice jump. And I jumped ahead here. You can see we didn't have to wait too long, but once that's all done, there we go, we're all good at this point. You can open up FATXplorer, go to devices, click on your drive, click on unmount, and now disconnect this one more time because we're now going to finally connect it to our Xbox 360. Now depending on your system, if you have either a fat model or a slim model, the instructions for this are going to be different. I'll go ahead and show you how to get it set up. Now real quick, if you're going to be doing a replacement on a fat system, you're going to need a set of T6 and T10 screwdriver bits. The first thing you can do is take your hard drive casing, flip it upside down, and there's going to be 4 T6 screws that you must remove. One of them is going to be hiding underneath the sticker, so just go ahead and remove the sticker and unscrew all of them. Once the screws are removed, gently undo the top cover of the casing, but do keep this in mind here, the button here, you don't want to lose any of these parts. There's going to be a button, a spring, and a piece of plastic between the two. Just keep this configuration in mind. It might get loose, but if it does, just make sure you don't lose any of these parts. Next is going to be 4 black T10 screws. You're going to unscrew all of these and then take off the top metal piece here. From here, you just need to physically disconnect the old hard drive if there is one in there and then gently pull it out. From here, you can work backwards. Put your SSD in place, make sure it is connected properly, put the metal piece back on top, and then screw in your 4 T10 screws yet again. Make sure you're careful with the button setup here, then put the top piece of plastic back on, flip it all upside down, and screw the 4 T6 screws back in. But keep in mind the plastic is quite soft, so when the screws stop, you stop. If you're using an Xbox 360 S or E, so a slim system, this is going to be much easier. You don't even need the casing here, but if you do have one of these, just go ahead, take your SSD, plop it into the casing like so, close it up, and from here, go to the side of your console and pop your SSD in. Yet again, having an enclosure like this is optional, but it would be recommended at least, just so it's not bouncing around everywhere. And there you go, that's all you have to do. Now that we're back over at the Xbox, I've plugged in the drive, it is running, but I have not run Bad Update just yet because I do want to show you all this. If you navigate over to your settings, go to System, and go to Storage, you're going to see your drive right here, but it's not going to look like what we set up at all. You can actually see there's even some storage that is being used, but if we navigate in here, there's absolutely nothing on here. This is to be expected, and this is as designed. You see, in order for this to work here properly with how bad storage works, you have to set this up here, but it's not going to be usable until we actually activate Bad Update. I'll even show you all as an example. Let me go to my USB drive, and if I take, let's say, this profile, move it, and try to navigate over to the drive itself, check it out. It just says that there was a problem with that, which is expected here. So you cannot use this drive. Keep in mind as well too, on the SSD itself, whether you're running Bad Update or not, do not ever format this on the Xbox. Yet again, I said this close to the beginning of the video, but I'm going to say it here yet again. You do not want to ever format this on your Xbox 360. Just keep that in mind. With that warning and feature out of the way, we do need to add our avatar data back to our system. So I'll show you how to do that. Now, if you're turning on your system and you haven't already done so, make sure you have the SSD plugged in and also take your USB drive and pop it in. If you get this message here saying an update is required, go ahead, navigate up, and say yes. Now wait a few moments here, it's going to extract the avatar data files to your SSD, and then the system is going to reboot. So now that the console has rebooted, we can go ahead and wait and check this out to make sure that this works. Once it reboots here, I do use Bad Avatar as my entry point, so you could see right here that the Bad Avatar prompt has already come up. Now all we really need to do is wait. I did include this extra step here because not only avatar data is needed for some features in games, but if you are going to be using the Bad Avatar entry point, you have to have that avatar data in order to use it properly. So now that we have that set up, let's just go ahead and wait for this to boot up because there is going to be something important to note here. Now you can see it is successful, it's about to load in, and right here there's going to be a black screen, which is pretty typical. But keep in mind, if you're using bad storage now, that black screen might go on for longer than expected. Mine was pretty fast because of the cluster size, but if you use the default 16 kilobyte cluster size from earlier, it might take longer than usual to boot up at that black screen. But if it does take longer, that is totally fine. That just means bad storage is doing its magic, which you can actually see right here because it shows that XE Unshackle has been updated and bad storage has been applied. Once that's all been set up, we just have to press the back button and wait for this to load in. And here we go, Aurora is loading up since I have it on my USB drive. And here we go, this is sorted out. Now, if you're seeing that your games are missing here, we are going to have to reset our paths, and I just want to take a few moments to highlight that. It is a little bit of a pain here, but this will be needed. So what you can do here in order to get this working is press the start button on your controller, go down to content, come over here, and you're going to notice since we changed drives, if you have any set up on the USB drive, any of those paths should still be the same. But if you have any paths here that have been set up on the actual drive, since it's tied to a device ID, we no longer have our old hard drive, we're now using the new solid state drive. So unfortunately, we're going to have to remove both these and re-add them. If you have to take note of these with like a picture or something, go ahead and do that here. But what I'm going to do is navigate into this one, and I know what these ones are already, so I'm going to delete this here, say yes. It's going to remove that old path data. And once that's been done, I'm going to also remove this one here. And now I'm going to go ahead and re-add my paths. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to change. It's going to be HDD1. And I know this one is within content. I'm going to highlight the zeros directory. and I'm going to change the depth to 3 and save it. The next thing I'm going to do is also add in my original Xbox games, which are right here. Scan depth is 2, save. And at this point, with those now set up, we can hit scan now. As it scans for your data, you can also now connect your system to your network if you have not already, so it can go ahead and download and populate all of the metadata for your covers and such here. Just give it a few moments to do so, depending on how large your library is. Well, we have everything downloaded now, but as you can see, this is kind of how my dashboard is looking, so let me just clean this up a little bit. And there we go, that's looking nicer. You could also see here, compared to what it was just a few minutes ago on the hard drive, I can actually smoothly scroll through these here, even though there's only 16 titles, as opposed to the hard drive where it was chugging a little bit, which, yeah, that ends up happening with Aurora. But yeah, now we can actually enjoy our SSD, and even if you want to check this out here. We can go over to our system settings, check out the storage here, and yet again, don't format your SSD in here, but if you go over to storage, check this out. It now shows up our proper name we gave it, and also shows how much actual storage is on there. So congratulations, you now have this all set up. But this here is also exactly why I had mentioned earlier that this here is a bad update exclusive. In order to utilize this, you must run bad update, and this drive is really not usable if you're only in retail mode. By the way, it's also worth mentioning here, now that you're done and at the end of this, if you want to reclaim some of your storage, there's a couple things that you can delete. In your USB drive, you can go over here and you can delete this cache system update folder, because we no longer need that since we've already extracted the avatar data. Additionally, you can also go to your hard drive backup folder if you made one on your computer, and if you've copied over the files and you've tested this and you've made sure everything works, you can reclaim some space by really just deleting this here. I'm going to trust my data at least, so I'm going to delete that. And hopefully that gives you a few gigabytes back. Either way, that is about it for this video here. Hopefully this video was able to help you all out, get up and running and sorted with now a possibly 2 terabyte SSD on your Xbox 360. Some really awesome stuff to see here. It's been a really welcome addition getting bad storage in the whole bad update universe, especially with how reliable bad update has become now, where really you can get in most of the time within a few seconds or maybe a minute or two, and now without ever touching a soldering iron, we now have up to 2 terabyte internal drives, SSDs mind you, working on the Xbox 360, which was thought to be impossible before, but we really have that working now, which is pretty great to see. Either way, if this video was helpful, if it was entertaining, if it was able to get you sorted, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, because, well, maybe you just don't want an SSD in your Xbox 360, a dislike is fine as well too. But as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.